Hey guys, and welcome to a belated episode of Let's Max Warframe. Today we're going to be taking a look at the latest secondary weapon to be given the new Prime treatment, Vasto Prime. Now I want to start this video off by apologising for the lack of content for this last week. Obviously we have had Christmas, but I've also had the unfortunate timing of my keyboard dying on me, which has meant that I've not been able to make any new content. Obviously I've now fixed that problem, which means I can start releasing the content for you guys again, starting with this, the Vasto Prime. Now the Vasto Prime was released as part of the Nova Prime update and is pretty much a straight up upgrade of the standard Vasto. The Prime boasts decent 60 damage a shot, with the majority of it coming in the form of slash damage. Now the main difference between it and the standard Vasto is how that damage breaks down, with, like I say, the majority coming in the form of slash, however having lower impact and puncture than the standard model. The Prime also comes with a slightly higher rate of fire at 5.4 rounds a second compared to the 5 of the normal Vasto, higher critical damage at 200% compared to 150%, and a significantly higher status chance at 15% compared to the standard's 5. Now the Prime also boasts a lot of the advantages that it shares with the standard, such as one of the fastest reloads out of all of the secondary weapons, at just 1 second. And also a very high degree of accuracy. Now it does sound like the Vasto Prime has a lot of upside, which is absolutely true. However, it's not immune to faults either. That said, there's only one real fault with this weapon, and that is that slash damage. Slash damage is significantly reduced by armour, which means that it's not going to scale well with high level Grineer, both on the star map and in the void. So that is something to take into account with this weapon. Now another downside, although it's really barely a downside quite frankly, is the 6 round magazine, which is quite small. Although with a 1 second reload on the weapon, it's not really going to be much of a problem to just keep on firing. Now the farm for the Vasto Prime was probably one of the most frustrating out of all of the new Prime items, with the parts dropping in the following locations: the barrel from Tower 2 mobile defense, the receiver from Tower 1 defense, and finally, the most frustrating one from me, the blueprint from Tower 4 Survival. Now the survival part is probably the worst one to get. Obviously you can have bad luck with Tower 2 mobile defense, or the Tower 1 defense and not receive the barrel or the receiver, but Tower 4 Survival is now so overpopulated that it can be ridiculously difficult to get. That said, obviously there is the RNG factor involved, and you could get it first run, but honestly it's not hugely likely, and if you're anything like me, you're going to have to do a silly amount of survival before you're actually able to get the blueprint. Okay, so let's move on to modding the Vasto Prime. Now it does have 2 polarities as standard, and we're going to add 3 more via Former. So you're going to end up with 3 Vs and 2 dashes in total. Now we've only got 3 mods that are going to remain the same between all 3 of our builds, which are going to be Hornet Strike, Barrel Diffusion and Lethal Torrent. Now for our Grineer build, we're going to max out our damage potential in terms of these 11-point dash polarity mods. This is the reason for the third former. The other builds don't actually need third former. This one really does. So we're going to start off with Pathogen Rounds and Frostbite for viral damage against the cloned flesh of the Grineer. And then we're going to go with Heated Charge, Convulsion and Jolt against the really heavily armoured Grineer units. And this is because of the very low puncture damage on the weapon and very high slash damage, which means against those really high level Grineer you're going to really struggle to take them down easily unless you go with a max damage build on this. You can't really afford to drop any of the other mods for another status mod purely because of the very low puncture damage. Now looking at the Corpus build, we're going to go with Frostbite, Jolt and Convulsion, which is going to bring up magnetic damage, and Pathogen Rounds and Pistol Pestilence, which is going to combine with that slash damage to really give those fleshy units a very bad day. And looking at our Void build, we're going to go with Pistol Pestilence, Jolt, Convulsion and Pathogen Rounds to absolutely max out that corrosive damage, and then we're going to go with Frostbite rather than the heat mods, purely because of the very low impact damage on the weapon. You may as well put a little bit of cold damage on there just to help deal with those shielded units in the void, things like your Fusion Mower and the Corrupted Crewman. So that would definitely be better than the heat mod on this weapon, at least for the void. Okay, and now on to my recommendation as to whether the Vasto Prime is worth the grind, and further to that, the former involved in maxing the weapon, and my answer is absolutely yes it is. I would go so far to say the Vasto Prime is one of the strongest non-syndicate secondaries in the game, and has quickly turned into being my Necros weapon of choice due to the massive slash damage dismembering bodies constantly, making Desecrate 2 or else sometimes 3 times as effective. The damage output from the Vasto Prime is amazing, and can carry up till a decent time within Tower 4 survival or interception, whilst not particularly high because of that slash damage. It does make this weapon not necessarily great for higher end content, but it does make it viable up to a point. Although realistically the Syndicate weapons are going to be more useful, if not for the damage that they put out, which is already pretty fantastic, but the utility of the health gain or the energy restore they provide depending on which proc you bring. At the end of the day, that 6-round magazine doesn't do anything to ruin my fun of playing with this weapon. It was a joy to former due to just how good it is even when it's unmodded, and when modded fully it turns into somewhat of a beast, and one of the most fun secondary weapons I've actually played with and reviewed in quite some time. Now in terms of taking the weapon further, is there more that can be done to the weapon to increase effectiveness? Now obviously the one thing you can do is to upgrade all of the 11-point dash polarities from the 7-point dual stat event mods, and that is going to bring you a bit more straight damage from the Vasto Prime at the loss of some of that status. However, I like having that high status on the weapon to complement my primary, and to do a bit of support work, if it's the radiation proc against the Grenier, or armor reduction in the Void. The way I have it modded is more of a support weapon than an all-out damage dealer. Now this is just personal preference however, and the weapon is fantastic with those 11-point mods on instead of the dual stat mods. Other than that, there's nothing else I would really change on the weapon. Seeker is an option, however it's not a mod I'm going to recommend, without it being it's just a straight up punch through mod, unlike Shred for the primaries, which has that secondary fire rate buff. Seeker just isn't worth the mod points that is taken up by putting it on this weapon. So in essence, great damage, great status, and an all-round fantastic sidearm. The Vasto Prime deserves the chance to become your main secondary weapon. It's amazing fun to play, and what's more, it's good. The Vasto Prime is the perfect balance of fun and usefulness, making it instantly one of my favourite secondary weapons in the game. Now a quick little channel update from me. I just want to say a huge thank you to all of you guys, my subscribers. While I was unable to make content, I've actually hit 500 subscribers, which is amazing. Thank you all. Now I do have something in the works as a 500 sub special, so stay tuned to my channel for that. Also, further to that, our clan, Yar Gaming, is recruiting as well. So if you guys are currently without a clan or would like to join us, then feel free to shoot me a message and we'll sort something out. If I'm online, I'm playing the game, which is pretty often. So feel free to add me as a friend in game, and if you'd like a clan invite, then just let me know. But again guys, from the bottom of my heart, thank you so much for the support. And as always, many thanks for watching. Please remember to leave a like and to subscribe, it helps me out a ton. And I shall see you in the next episode.